Hi folks, we've got another Clean Water Systems instructional video for you today. Today we're going to discuss maintaining and troubleshooting your J-PRO-22 chlorinator pump. So a couple things before we begin. Per the installation instructions, hopefully you do not have this set up mounted outside in direct sunlight. The UV will destroy the tubing, the pump, and the tank. So you're not going to get a very long lifespan out of these if they are mounted outside. And also you want to make sure that your area is not freezing, where you can freeze up and damage the equipment. So kind of a couple of things here. If you're not getting any chlorine into your water system, you want to make sure, especially if you got this wired into like your pump switch or something like that, do verify that you have power going to the pump. If you're in manual mode, you can just go ahead and turn the pump on and make sure it's pumping. So you should hear that sound. That means the pump's working. Okay, then also the other thing that we've seen on some of these come back to the shop is the PC boards are fried. So these things are really sensitive to power surges, so you definitely want to make sure you have some kind of surge protector set up with these pumps. So the first thing we're going to do is verify that we actually we can prime the pump, because there's several check valve areas that can get clogged up and will need to be cleaned. So the first thing you're going to want to do is go ahead and you want to make sure all your fittings are tightened up first of all, because a loose fitting will keep the pump from priming. So it's important with these guys that tube go all the way up here, and then you put your tube on. Kind of a trick here to help get that, push that up on there like that. You can run the tube under hot water. It'll soften it up a little bit, and or you can use like a hair dryer and warm it up. But anyway, you got to have that tube all the way up. So you want to check that and make sure all your fittings are tight. The second thing we'll do is we're going to go ahead, and you have your degas valve here. So I went ahead and pulled the tube out of the cylinder here, or out of the container, just to double check and make sure we have water coming up through the pump. So we'll go ahead and turn that pump on, and we'll go ahead and open this degassing valve, and we should see water come out here. Yep, as you can see, the pump is priming, and that's what you want to see, water spurting out like that. So that means that our foot valve and the check valves coming into the system and the check valves coming out of the pump are all good. If you open that degas valve and you can't get anything coming up through it, you're going to want to check a few things. So the first thing you want to check is your foot valve. And that's one of these guys right here. Okay, so basically this guy comes apart. You want to make sure the screen's clear. This is on the tube that's down into your tank. So this thread, this nut here, unthreads. And basically what you have is a seat, a seal. That's where your check valve is. This is the inlet check valve. So these guys here have a direction. There's two of them in each one. You blow into it one way, it goes in. You want to make sure you have that inserted in there correctly. Okay, so obviously you need to be able to make sure it's going the right direction. So I can blow through it this way, so this is going to be at the bottom of the foot valve here. You'll thread that back in there. So you clean all of that up. You can use a little white vinegar too if you need to clean it all up. So that's the foot valve. That's the first thing where your problem could be. The second part is right here, the inlet check valve. So there are two check valves. Works the same as the foot valve. There are these little check valves right here, and you want to make sure you put them in the right direction. So your liquid's coming up through this way, So you want to make sure this white piece here, the white thing, faces down. These also have a little washer that go down in them. So your little washer goes down in there. There's 2 of these. Make sure you put them both facing the same direction. One way, one the other way. It won't work. You won't have flow through. So after you do that, you want to make sure you actually have flow through it by blowing into this end, which we do. Okay, then you have an O-ring here that seals, and that guy is going to thread up into the bottom of your degas valve, or the bottom of your pump here. Okay, so your degas valve up here on the top has the same thing. It has 2 of these check valves. And again, you have a little white washer that goes in first. It's a little spacer. Get that down in there. And then you want to make sure these are going the right direction. Go ahead and blow in it. Okay, so the white end actually gives you flow. So this degas valve, the flow is going up into it. So you want to put these in this way. And then we have one more. Plus you have then the O-ring here on the bottom. And then this unit here then threads down into the top of here. So again, you want to make sure all your check valve things are going the right direction. If those are all cleaned up and there's no clogs, the next thing you're going to want to do is replace the diaphragm. Now another good thing to look for when you come out and do your monthly inspections for your free chlorine is go ahead and do a visual around here. These pumps actually have a small hole in the bottom right here, and what they'll do when they start, if that diaphragm starts leaking, you'll actually see a white powdery stuff starting to form around here. That basically means that you have a leak. So at that point you're going to want to do a rebuild on your pump. So to rebuild the pump, you're going to go ahead and remove these little blue plastic caps here, and then you're going to take these 4 bolts out. And I also wanted to mention, after you fire your pump up for the first time, after you've run it for like an hour or so, you do want to go ahead and check that these bolts stay tight. Don't over tighten them. You can break the housing. Just snug them up. And that's something you want to do yearly. Just kind of an idea to make sure everything, these will loosen up a little bit over time. Okay, so when you pull the back head off, you can see here's the back of the pump, and there's a O-ring that seals. And then the pump itself, you have a diaphragm here. There again, you notice this ring on here and the hole in the bottom, that's your drain. So when you reinstall it, you want to make sure your holes line up, and that's there. So what we're going to do is go ahead and unthread this, and this just twists off. Okay, and that unthreads. You'll see a little bit of grease there that comes from the manufacturer, but that just threads into this hole here. And then you have an O-ring, and that seals this side of the pump. Okay, so if you need to pull the pump apart any further than this, it's damaged. It's no good. So replacing a diaphragm, like I said, if the diaphragm gets a hole in it, it'll start leaking, and the diaphragms are easy to replace. So we'll go ahead and reinstall the O-ring, or a new O-ring if it's damaged. Go ahead and thread your new diaphragm in. Okay, and you're going to go ahead and thread this on until it's snug. Go ahead and kick that, like I said, back around to where the holes at the bottom and your 4 holes line up. Make sure your O-ring is in here, in the back part of the pump here. That O-ring looks good. And then go ahead and reinstall your pump. And again, you don't want to over tighten these too much, but you do want to snug them up. Okay, like I said, go ahead and tighten these up. You want to kind of do a crisscross pattern as you're coming up. Don't over tighten them. You can break the plastic back or the pump housing. So go ahead and snug those up. Again, you want to do that every year. You would go ahead and, again, in review, put in your lower and your upper check valves with your degas valve and hook everything back up. And at this point, then you would go ahead and fire your pump back up. Make sure you open your degas valve, you get a good flow going back there. And then what you're going to want to do is run this for a while and check your free chlorine every day for a couple days until you get it set in. One thing that is important to remember when you readjust your time here as far as your pump speed, you got to wait at least 15 seconds for it to set, because if you change your pump speed and you don't wait the 15 seconds, it'll go back to the original pump speed. So go ahead and adjust your pump speed for the amount of chlorine that you need. Other than that, do come out and check your free chlorine every month. You want to keep an eye on things. You know, you want to make sure your system stays running. We do recommend that everybody have a spare foot valve and a degas valve and a diaphragm, just in case it breaks, because it does take a few days for us to ship out to you, and we wouldn't want you to be without your system if you need it. So backup parts are highly recommended. And that's all for today. Take care.